So welcome everybody. I'm Chloe Wheatley, Chair of the English Department, and this is one of my favorite events of the semester. This is our first alum panel of this year, actually. It's a chance for me to reconnect with familiar faces from years gone by, and it's a chance for our English alums to have a chance to share with you their experiences after English, as we call it. So I'm going to introduce all three of our panelists, and then I'm going to ask a series of questions that will, introduce us to their sense of how their professional lives have connected to what they did here, and then we'll be opening up the floor for questions. All right, so let's see. We'll start with Erin. Erin graduated in 2007. She received her MFA in creative writing at the New School and is now literary agent at Folio Literary Management. Laurie Napolitano graduated in 2008, and she worked first at Penguin Group, and then for the last 6.5 years she's been working at Google doing UX writing. And we'll learn more about what that is, I think, along the way. And Ryan Haney graduated in 2010. He performs for the Upright Citizens Brigade and is a comedy writer and performer. And all three of them took the Amtrak up from New York, and it got here on time, and here we are. Okay, so let me start by asking a basic question of all three of you. And you can answer it in order and interrupt each other, however you want to do this. But I just want to hear, I want you to take a minute to describe to us your current job in a little more detail, what you like most about the work that you're doing. And maybe one way to do that would be to kind of talk us through a little bit of what a typical day in your work life looks like. Want to start?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here. As Professor Wheatley mentioned, I'm a literary agent. When I first graduated from Trinity, I wasn't really sure what it was I wanted to do. I had two passions that were related. The first was literature, and the second was theater. And I say they're related because, for me, it was always about storytelling. So quickly after I decided I didn't want to be an actor, I just interned for a literary agent, and I fell in love with the work right away. And I fell in love with it because it was so exciting to me to be at the forefront of literature and to realize that literature is an ongoing conversation. It is wonderful to study canonical texts and to do work in a library. It is also wonderful to discover new writers and to nurture their careers and to bring them to a contemporary readership. And I decided that was sort of the position in the literary ecosystem that I wanted to fill. So fast forward 10 years, what is a day in the life of a literary agent like? There's not an easy answer to that because every day is different. It's a really dynamic job, and that is one of the things I love most about it. But if I had to generalize, email is a big component of one's day. You spend a lot of time managing your email, but what kinds of emails are you receiving? You are receiving a barrage of emails from many different directions. You are receiving emails that pertain to new business and new authors that you may be considering. You are receiving emails that focus on the present of what's happening, whether that is a contract that's coming in that needs to be routed or negotiated. That could be a payment that you're following up on. It could be a quiet or not so quiet battle with the publicity department to encourage them to do more for your authors. It could be emails soliciting blurbs for books that are forthcoming. It can also be emails about the past life of books, royalty statements, for example. So email's a big component of the day. Another big component of the day is networking, going to lunches with editors, meeting new clients in the office, meeting with film and TV agents, because increasingly books are being sourced for content for film and TV. And so that is a business that exists adjacent to ours, and so we get to dabble in that world a little bit. Perhaps I should back up for 1 second and just tell you a little bit about what an agent does. I realize I kind of took for granted that you knew that, and you may, but I definitely did not know that when I graduated. Agents wear many hats, but in a nutshell, our job is to be the custodian of a writer's work. We are tasked with finding talent, developing it to a place where it is ready to be submitted to publishers. We need to have an intimate knowledge of who all the key players are at the different publishers and in the different departments of publishing houses. Those departments are known as imprints. We create submissions lists. We then handle the submission. There are many different ways a submission can be configured and can conclude. We broker the deal, then we negotiate the contract, and then we serve as your fiduciary or an author's fiduciary. So the publisher pays an agent, the agent takes their 15% commission, which is standard if that's a domestic deal, and then we pay the client. But we're also career managers and your publishing partner. The hope is that writers will want to stay with us over the course of many books, and our careers will grow in lockstep. So that, in a nutshell, is what an agent does.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, I'm Laurie. Thanks for having me. So I work at Google as a UX writer. And essentially, to set the stage for what a UX writer does, I'm just going to give a quick overview of Google. So there's the tech side and the sales side. So I'm only going to talk about tech because it's the only org I've ever been in. So tech is basically building the products. So you have product managers, UX, that's user experience, and engineering. So PMs are product managers, and they develop the business strategy for what is this product we're building and why are we building it. So a ton of our apps are free and for consumers, so there's no business strategy. We just want people using Google. But I actually work on G Suite, which is like Gmail, Calendar, Docs, Drive. So we sell that to enterprise businesses, other businesses who will use it. So there is a very clear strategy. And I've worked on consumer products before. I worked on Google Maps for a really long time. So it's a very fundamentally different experience. So back to, so the product managers are determining we want to get feature parity with Microsoft. We want to innovate and build features that use machine intelligence so that our users are really powered by data analysis that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. So the PMs are deciding what we're going to work on, and then the engineers are building it, and then the UX designers are working closely. Those are three groups that work really closely together to determine how it's going to look and what the interactions will be. So I sit on that team. And basically, there's a ton of different types of UX designers. There's interaction, which is when you click the button, what will happen? Or what's the flow of this product? And then there's motion, so anytime something swoops in or out, and it can fundamentally help you understand. When you move a file, you see it move and you understand. And then I'm a writer, so all of the words within the flow. And then we have UX engineers who help build prototypes to do research. Researchers are another component who will take you through a usability study so that you'll understand, people are very confused when you say delete or move to trash. They don't understand the difference. So we learn from that and then we iterate. So as a UX writer sitting in that department, I mostly just work really closely with my design counterparts, product managers and engineers, as we're building things, just okay, what does this error message have to say? What are we communicating, and how can we communicate it more clearly? When we're launching a new Gmail, we need to onboard users to this new Gmail. So we need to show them that, oh, we have multiple inboxes. How are you going to communicate multiple inboxes to a person who's never used Gmail before, a person who's used Gmail for 10 years, an enterprise person who's switching over from Outlook and can't access the same folders that they used to access on their old system. So there is like critical user journeys that you have to think about and then create a strategy and like iterate.
Hi, I'm Ryan. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. I've mostly been freelance writing, or the reason I'm here, I think, is for freelance writing. That means that you're freelancing. You're contributing to like different websites or publications, giving them content or articles or kind of stuff that they can publish. So a typical day, I don't know, it kind of varies depending on what kind of job you're working. Like I've had jobs where like I was contributing to the website Funny or Die, which is a humor website. So I would, when I was doing that, I would like wake up. Thank God. I would wake up and like they were like looking for topical stuff. So I'd check the news, I'd see what was like trending, I'd think of some ideas to pitch on that, and then I'd like pitch my editor with like 3 or 4 ideas, wait for him to write me back. He would say, let's do this one. He would say, we hate these. He would say, or like something like, or can we change this to this? Once we kind of decide on a pitch, an idea that he likes, then I'd go right into writing that out, into writing that article, and kind of looking for like a pretty fast turnaround, like a website like Funny or Die that's working like really trending stuff. You're like they kind of like want it to be up that day, or else you like get up the next day about something that was on yesterday and nobody would care. That was like looking for really fast turnaround. Then I've also done jobs where like I was writing for Runner's World, running this like column about running and vegan nutrition. So that would be like, I was researching, I went to a race once and like interviewed vegan runners about what they ate for breakfast, and had to like take pictures of them on my smartphone. I have a iPhone. I am cool, just like you guys. I've taken, like, done an interview, and then you go back, write that up. Or I've like done research about like what are like 5 what have I done? Like 5 different recipes you can do with chickpeas that'll improve your running. So like then you're doing like quick research on what are the actual nutritional properties of chickpeas. How am I making this all up, or will this actually help people? And you're like trying to build that into like some kind of cohesive article. So that was like that. Like that's something where usually I was approached, or like that's kind of a more confined assignment where it's like we want vegan nutrition running, but I'm still pitching that editor on stuff, being like, well, what do you think about like 4 vegan dishes for winter, or like what to think about like how to make your own energy gel, and she'll kind of go back and forth with me like this and kind of rein it in, and that would even be kind of more specific about what she wanted that to look like. And then I've done other kinds of jobs, like then, so if I'm not working on an assignment, then I'll kind of be working on my own stuff, like writing stuff I want to like put up or perform, kind of like with the kind of writing. I do a lot of comedy writing, so it's the performance aspect and the writing aspect are kind of hand in hand, and like if you're writing for a place, that can kind of boost your performance profile, or if people know you and like seeing you perform, they might want to check out your writing. So kind of working on those 2 in tandem. And then then sometimes working on like writing my own projects to like stuff I want to submit, like stuff I want to submit to the New Yorker or McSweeney's, neither of which have yet published anything, but I do feel I'm on the brink.
It's only a matter of time.
Yes, it'll be so soon. Or then like there's also like the kind of hunting and pecking sometimes you have to do of like, you kind of are out there looking like, oh, do I like this website? Do they have any job opening? Are they looking for anything? looking for people who are writing just looking if there's any other opportunities that people want kind of some freelance for, or kind of you can tap somebody and be like, hey, are you guys looking for anything, or trying to find if there's a lot of kind of in online publishing or media or content, is that like things are very quickly changing, and that like places, like I was writing Grow Funny or Die in January, they shut down all their editorial, and like just because like they weren't making money on it, so that's gone, and now you got to go find somewhere else that like is still putting out daily content and like try and see if they'll want some of your stuff. So it's like
So what's so interesting to me, listening to the three of you talk, is the first thing, I mean, I have lots of specific questions that I'd love to ask about the specifics, but what I'm hearing is, we have working for the big company, we have on your own, freelance, and then we have something in the middle, right?
Yeah,
I mean, is the literary agency a big one, a small one? Is it?
I work at a medium-sized agency.
Right. So,
but every agency has a different culture and a different setup. There are large agencies that also have talent divisions attached to them, such as William Morris Endeavor or ICM or CAA. Then there are a lot of boutique agencies. I actually started out at a boutique agency. Increasingly, though, I think people at boutique agencies are banding together. People are finding that there is strength in numbers, and so we're seeing more mid-sized agencies like mine, like Folio, crop up.
Right.
But beyond having sort of the big corporation and the sort of on-your-own entrepreneurial spirit and the mid-sized as part of the spectrum, I think my job is sort of a mix of the two of yours, in the sense that most agents need to be extremely entrepreneurial. There are some agencies that will salary agents, but most agents work on commission only. So you are only making money off the books that you sell, and you don't know how much money you're going to make year over year.
Right.
Much like being a freelancer.
yeah.
So you started at a smaller place. Is that the way to break into your field, or are there multiple ways in which that happens?
There are multiple ways. What I like to tell aspiring people who want to work in publishing is that it's really important to start early with internships. And unfortunately, most of them are unpaid. Publishing operates on a kind of apprenticeship model. And unlike some other fields, it gets easier with time, and people often never retire. My previous boss worked until, she's still working, but when I was working for her, she was in her late 60s, early 70s. And as you develop what's called a backlist, meaning the books that you already have on your roster, you start to see royalties from those books. So it's not just about the deals you're doing year over year, or that year. You have, other things in the coffer that are bringing in additional revenue.
And what about for the user experience writing? Who employs UX writers besides Google?
That's a good question. I think it's a growing discipline. When I started at Google, we were called editors. There's been a lot of churn over the years. I think smaller startups are starting to have them. They're called all different things. There's not a lot of consistency yet. So like copywriter and even like content strategist I see all the time. I think honestly, if you're interested in tech, work at a small tech company and just like build up your resume of like any strings, and then the bar is super low. Like I interview people all the time who have no tech writing experience. They like came from a publishing house, as I did 6.5 years ago, and they're interested and they really like technology, and they can show that a lot of people also are journalism journalists or journalism majors. They can show that they understand like the lead of a story, and like you can digest a ton of information and like spit it back out just in simpler language, which goes a long way. I mean, my job is basically sitting with engineers and people who have a much higher comprehension of the technical complexity behind a flow or interaction, and just making it simple. So, like, it's a bit of a boon if you're not an engineer, because then you understand the users. Like, we always say you're not your user, but like I kind of am.
Right. All right, so maybe I ask a slightly different question. I think there are a lot of people here, students, who are thinking about what they could be doing next while they're in school to, some of you've mentioned internships, right? To prepare for what comes next. So maybe Ryan, you could start with this question. So thinking back to your senior year, for example, what was on your mind? Like what did that feel like? It's okay, yeah. What was that? What was going through your mind in senior year?
What was going through my mind? Not a lot. I don't know.
Did you have an idea about what you were going to do after graduation?
Yeah, I was and I'm doing all I knew is that I wanted to come to New York, and I wanted to study improv. That was kind of my big plan. That's like what I really wanted to do. And I did that, and it was fun. It was really cool, and I still get to do that, which I feel really lucky to do. But that, like, that's all I knew really at that point. I guess I didn't kind of make that connection of like, there's kind of like that system has its own like built-in ladder, but I never kind of started to think about what I would do for a living. I kind of like thought it'd be like, oh, go to New York and 1, 2, 3, famous. And it didn't. It's like then I realized like, oh no, there's other stuff that you have to do. I guess like the thing I kind of realized much later was that like, and I'm sure Aaron understands this, getting pitches and drafts and stuff like that. You have to kind of start making that transition for like when you're in school, people are giving you assignments. They're like telling you, I need to have this story, this paper, you got to have it done for me. This is what I want you to write. And then when you get out of that, like there's like no assignments. If you want to do something, you have to start creating it. So that's kind of like what took me a while to realize like, oh, I need to start putting stuff out there that people can see and recognize, or like just some kind of, proof of concept. Like, here's some of my writing. What do you think? Like I was just kind of thinking, oh, I'll show up there and then I'll get a job writing. But you have to have something to show first. And that's kind of like, that kind of took me a couple years to get that through my head. But yeah.
Yeah, Laurie, how about you? What were you thinking about?
I really quickly have to say the self-direction piece is huge. I think that is the toughest transition, just being told what to do and doing it exactly as they said you should, and then you get an A and it's over. Like, it's so different. Like, at Google, I could definitely just do what my manager assigns me or what people come to me with for questions, but I would get nowhere fast. Like, I have to every day come up with a new like vision for UX writing on G Suite, and like what are my OKRs, objective key results, and like basically like make a job for myself and then do that and then talk about it all the time and like selling myself. That's like the key piece that I feel like took me a long time to understand. Like, oh, I've got to like come up with my own ideas. I can't just like do what they tell me to do, which feels really good and gets you pretty far for a long time, and then they pull the carpet out from under. My senior year, I was really, I knew I wanted to be in publishing, and I got a job at Penguin after. There was a lot of like hand-wringing before I got that job, but I knew I had a really clear direction. It was very surprising when I wanted to leave publishing 3.5 years later.
I was thinking about Salman Rushdie and James Joyce my entire senior year.
And that's okay.
And that was it. Maybe Milton, but I think that was junior year. And I really should have also been thinking about what comes after, but I wasn't. and I knew I also wanted to be in New York. So I moved to New York, and shortly thereafter, I took an internship at a literary agency, as I mentioned. I found the internship and applied for it off of Craigslist. I'm dating myself now a little bit. I also have a colleague at Folio who has the same publishing origin story. But all this to say is, I don't think you can do that anymore. So you guys need to be more proactive and more forward-thinking. And if you have an interest in working in publishing, I'd be more than happy for you to reach out to me. I can give you my contact information. Folio has a terrific and educationally oriented program. We even have a kind of codified class that's called Intern Academy. And you get to meet all of the different agents at Folio once a week when we teach Intern Academy. And we do fun things like mock auctions. In addition to interning at a literary agency, and Folio is not the only one, we could talk about others, the Columbia Publishing course is also a bit of an institution in the industry and is known as a kind of gatekeeper organization. It is, I believe, somewhat costly to enroll and go, and it is a competitive application process. But I would say that most people who come out of that course do go on to get a job either at a publisher or at an agency.
So, Laurie, did you go to Columbia? No.
No,
No,
I didn't
okay.
get in, cried.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah.
And then got a job, like, I literally started on June 1st. Like, I had a job, like, 3 days after graduation. So I think it's great, but I also think, like, I remember my friends and I crying a lot with the job hunt, and now, like, crying over a job feels so weird. Like, I would never do that. But, like, so much crying. And, like, there's just, like, no reason to cry. Like, it's not a big deal. There are so many jobs. It'll be fine.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about English in relationship to all this, because, you know, it's interesting to think about. I mean, there are some obvious connections. So there's some obvious connections between doing English and what you do. But what I'd be curious to know are, what are some of the less obvious ways in which what you did here has made a difference in what
Yeah.
you do now?
So up until this point in the conversation, I've mainly talked about the business side of being an agent. I've not at all talked about the artistic and creative side, which is actually the best side and why I love my job. I use my English degree from Trinity every single day. That's not lip service. It is the truth. In fact, I felt like the study of literature and English was so important to what I wanted to do as a part of my career that I felt like I needed further education and needed to round out my literature degree by studying creative writing, which is why I went and pursued an MFA at the New School. And I draw on that collective reservoir of knowledge every day as I am editing my clients' work, helping them develop work, reading and thinking critically about text. So I represent books in several different categories. Literary fiction is my passion, so I represent that, but it is by far and away the most challenging and competitive of the markets that I work in. I also work on upmarket fiction, and I do narrative nonfiction and some young adult as well. Working with clients editorially, the way you're learning to read closely now and the way you are learning to analyze a text and build an argument, you're going to use those skills in everything you do, because being a logical thinker and a persuasive arguer are really important skills, whether you're actively using your English degree by engaging with text or whether you're doing something else. Those skills, I think, are invaluable and very transferable.
Sure. I think, I think like from doing the writing kind of stuff that there's so much, like especially kind of this online digital publishing boom, there's like so much writing online, and there's so much content, like just like really being churned out very quickly, which can lead to like a lot of bad writing that's online. And like if you like a lot of articles, there's one there's one website that I actually hope to work for them, so I won't say what it is, but like you'll see a lot of stuff that's just like bad writing, that's like is boring or doesn't get the ideas clearly across, or like isn't just interesting to read. And like even if because I've done like listicle articles or something like that, and where you're just the chickpea thing, when you still want to like have it be interesting to read, you still want it to be clear, you still want to get your ideas across. So I think if you're able to be a good writer and able to just kind of effectively communicate, that like already makes you stand out when there's so much, even though there's so much kind of being kind of thrown at the wall. If you kind of have good, clear, solid writing, that's already kind of putting you a step ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, there's just so much information all the time. Like at Google, I work at a huge company. There's decks about everything, like our 2018 goals for enterprise, how we're going to make Gmail more like calendar visually, like, and to distill like 19 strategies across PM, UX, Eng, sales, marketing, brand marketing, product marketing into like, okay, these are the 3 ideas, this is what we're going to accomplish, and like this is the net result. I mean, when you go into, we have something called like an apps product review, and it's like everyone important and they tell you to solve a problem, and then you have to go in and like show that you solved it. And if you went in there not having the skills of an English major to just like, like it's writing a paper. It's the outline, and then you just follow it along, and it's logical. There are so many really, really smart people who I admire who can't put a deck together. And it's like, it's really sad to compare writing a paper to making a deck, but it's just the world. Like, it's an incredible skill. And I have one of the hardest parts about being a UX writer at Google is people hear writer, and like so many people at Google are really smart and good at many things, maybe not being articulate is one of them. So, I mean, people ask me, like, will you look at this email? Will you help us with the newsletter? And I have to, like, education and, like, telling you guys what a UX writer does. I have to tell my team what a UX writer does. Like, I don't write marketing emails. I'm not going to make this splash page. I don't write help center content. Like, I won't copy edit your personal writing for you. So, like, the skill is very appreciated, and I really do think it comes from just being able to like read a really dense text and be able to distill it. That's like still the world we live in every day. It's digesting information.
So was English just it? I mean, you walked into Professor Wheatley's English 260 and Life Sciences, like the pencil stuck in the ceiling. Remember that?
Uh-huh.
And that was it, right? That's how it worked, right? No, I'm just kidding. So were there other things that you thought about doing at Trinity, or in terms of majors? Like, what was that process like as you decided what you wanted to do here?
I never had a choice. I was in love with books from the time I could read, and that was just it for me. I know I mentioned that I loved the theater as well, but it was still part of that same artistic impulse and that same gravitation toward storytelling.
Did you do theater here?
I did do some theater here, yeah, in the theater and dance department. And I studied abroad in New York at La Mama my junior year. But I never had a choice in the matter because I just knew that I loved this so much, and I didn't want to squander my time doing things that I wasn't as passionate about. So I kind of made my bed and had to lie in it. And it's it's been a fantastic experience working in publishing. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I sort of feel the same way about being an agent as I did about being an English major. There was nothing more pragmatic that I wanted to do or could do, and I decided that this passion was enough to sustain me. And I think for those of you who may be thinking about a career in publishing, that's a really important question to ask yourselves and to be honest with yourselves about, because it is not the most pragmatic of careers, but it is a career that is so incredibly rewarding, and one that allows you to be intellectually engaged every day. It's actually pretty rigorous. And one where you meet extraordinary people, not just people who are writing literature, but great thinkers across all different kinds of disciplines. And to be a part of helping them create work and bring it to the public is a pretty amazing thing.
Okay. Well, when I was at Trinity, I was also doing, like Aaron, I was doing a lot of theater. And I think I was going to, it's very close to double majoring. And then there was a class I didn't want to take, so I didn't. And I just got an English major. And I didn't write a thesis, but I somehow graduated with honors. I shouldn't be admitting that. I like it. And my mother was very proud. What did so I was doing theater and English simultaneously. Yeah, and because I was very much like, when I was here and I found the improv group, as nerdy as that sounds, it was like what I loved. I really wanted to do it. I was all about it. And that's kind of like what took me away. I really liked writing. I loved reading. I loved talking about books. I liked writing about books. And then I kind of found the comedy thing and latched onto that and followed that. And then it's kind of, but they kind of nicely ended up meeting again together, where you kind of realize that, like, you know, if I was just going to go to New York and try and be an actor, that ended up, for some reason, didn't feel as fulfilling to me. That I wanted to like create my own stuff that I could perform myself, or just kind of create stuff and not kind of. And I didn't want to be waiting around to like get a part or audition and hopefully get into something. So yeah, those two things. I was a creative writing major, and I kind of let it sit for a long time, and then kind of felt that that urge or that desire to like start creating my own stuff again. And they those two things, kind of the theater aspect and the English aspect, kind of nicely ended up marrying together.
Yeah, similarly, I don't even remember making the decision about English. I just liked those classes. I think I came to Trinity liking English, but then it just only grew from there. And then I think senior year I realized like I could have been a minor in philosophy, but I didn't submit the paperwork, or I needed an extra class. I don't know. It was like a moot issue, but I loved philosophy too. And the type of literature I've always liked has been like philosophical. So, I mean, literature is philosophical. So, it wasn't a big choice.
So you did theater. You found your improv brethren.
Uh-huh.
Did you have other things that you did at Trinity that were like a really important part of your experience here? It's a long time ago.
I mean, like, the friendships were really important. That sounds so cheesy. Like, they really were. And yeah, I mean, it was just like books and hanging out.
That's a good tagline for Trinity College.
So Trinity teacher, books and hanging out.
Yeah. So I guess my other question would be, you've given really great advice along the way, right, about making that transition from doing what you're told to telling people what they're going to do. But are there other pieces of advice that you would give people in this room, students in this room at this point, especially about the transition from college to professional life? Are there other pieces of advice that you think they need?
I think, like, the thing I've started to realize And it's like, it's kind of counterintuitive for me, or like against my nature with it, like you kind of have to, like, I guess it's like a squeaky wheel gets the grease situation. Like, you kind of have to start to like ask for the things that you want, or like contact people about the things that you want. You have to put your, like, if there's a job that you want or someplace that you're interested in working at, you gotta bug them. You gotta be like, hey, what's going on? This is me. Do you have any, like, do you think there's anywhere I fit in? Or I like the work that you guys do. Here's some of my stuff. What do you think? I think that's kind of like the biggest thing, is that like you'll have to start like being proactive, and then those people, once you contact them, you might never hear from them. You might hear from them and they'll say no. You might hear from them and be like, this is cool, but no thanks. Like, there's like what Laurie said about like eventually it gets silly to cry about a job. Like, you'll have like these moments where you think you're close and it falls apart, and that's like, cool, we got to find the next one. Like, you just got to like keep putting stuff out there and like have a bunch of or give yourself as many chances, like whatever you're interested in, or like if there's a spot that you think you're good for, like make that connection.
Mm-hmm. I love so much of what you just said, and I may wind up repeating some of it, but I don't think that's terrible, because I think it's good for you to hear it several times from different people. You need to be an ambassador for yourself. I would say that you are much more resilient than you may think you are. I would say that it's really great to have a semblance of a plan before you graduate, if possible. But on the other hand, you do not need to have it figured out right away. And in fact, I think the notion of having it figured out is inherently false, because life is always changing, and you're going to have to keep figuring it out as time goes on and you enter different chapters in your life. Networking is hugely important. I don't think I realized how important networking was until I entered a business that revolves around networking. It's really important to write thank you notes to people, to go the extra step and introduce yourself to people, and draw on the resources that you have that you might not even realize yet are resources. You know, your friends are going to be networking as well. Ask them who they know. Ask your professors. Talk to us. Talk to other alumni. I mean, you're here today, so that is a great first step.
I have 3 pieces of advice, and I think they're all important, but they're going to be quick. 1 is getting a sponsor. I'm going to go into detail. 2 is being explicit, and 3 is, I just forgot it, and I really didn't want to. Oh, ask questions. Okay, so sponsorship. I don't know if this is like a real world term or a Google term, but they distinguish between sponsors and mentors. Mentors are giving you a lot of their time and getting a lot back. Sponsors don't need anything from you and have very limited amounts of time. So I have a sponsor. She's the director of UX writing. I was on her team a really long time ago. Now I'm not. And I literally emailed her 2 weeks ago to be like, I have a new VP. Will you meet with them and tell them what UX writing is? Because I'm so low on the totem pole and I want them to understand. And she's a good ambassador. It's like, Roger, got it. But she has no time to beat around the bush. So get a sponsor. They're really high up. They're important. It's hard to win them over, but work at it, and then just be really respectful of their time all the time and tell them exactly what you need them to do for you. 2, be explicit. This is advice that's very similar to what you were saying of just own what you want and ask for it. A VP of search at Google always talks about this, just being explicit, not just with your boss, which can be super hard and scary, saying I want to move back to New York, or I want to be a director within the next 4 years, and I'm also going on maternity leave. Like, just like there are conversations you have to have that are tough, and they're tough because you don't want to know maybe what the answer is, but not knowing what the answer is going to get you, not knowing what the answer is isn't going to get you anywhere. So like, tell yourself, like, be honest about what you want, and then be honest with other people. And then 3, ask questions. We were talking about this earlier. Just like, I think about how much of my early career that I nodded at people, and just like say, I don't know what that is. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're asking me. I'm not going to be able to do it when you leave the room. Like, we sit in meeting rooms all the time, and there's acronyms. I like, in being an enterprise business after 5 years on Google Maps, like, I don't know what people are talking about half the time. And it took me 10 years working to have the confidence to say, sorry, what? And it is just like the biggest time saver in the world. And no one ever faults you for like, you don't know what that is? They're just like, yeah, whatever. And it's like over. So just ask the question.
Well, this seems like a really beautiful transition, actually.
Well done. Well done.
What questions do you have for these panelists that you would feel like asking in front of everyone?
You can ask us anything.
You can ask us
anything.
We may not answer it, but
Did you just major broadly in English? All of you, did you just major broadly in English, or like a specific category within English, like creative writing, or like did you focus on like a specific, I guess, topic, or like take certain classes?
So you were creative writing.
I was a
track.
creative writing
Mhm.
major. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
And you both were literature track.
yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
To what extent in your respective fields do all roads lead to New York?
That was one of my questions that I wanted to ask. Or back to
Well-
New York, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You were-
I had to swim against the current. It was one of those explicit conversations, was having to tell my manager after they had relocated me to Mountain View, I hate it here and I can't stay at this company unless I go back to New York. And it was really hard. It was like one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But I basically was interviewing at other companies in New York and flying back. And I told my coworker, who's my friend, and she was like, tell Stevie you want to move. Like, you're going to leave Google without ever even saying, can I move back to New York? Because I didn't want her to be upset, and I thought it was bad that I had taken the relocation bonus. Who cares? Like, so no, I could easily live in California, but I don't want to.
Traditional publishing is based in New York, and as someone who's starting out in an entry-level position, you really do need to be in New York. There are some publishers, particularly indie publishers, that are located elsewhere. For example, Milkweed is in Minneapolis, or 10 Speed Press is in California. But if you want a publishing position in editorial or on the agenting side, if an editorial at one of the big 5, then you really need to be in New York. Increasingly, agents who are sort of in a more advanced stage of their career than I am are often able to live elsewhere if they have a kind of office that serves as the home base in New York.
Yeah, and for comedy writing, you either have to be in New York or LA, pretty much.
Have you thought about LA at all?
Yeah, I have. LA it's spread out. I'll tell you what, it is big. I don't know. I just like New York because for all those weird intangible reasons. The bagels. We're talking Yankees. I think so the literal work I'm doing, I do from my apartment. At my computer, sitting in my apartment, most of the time. But so I guess I could be doing that anywhere. But I would have never gotten any of the jobs that I have if I hadn't been around a comedy scene, meeting people who were also working they know me, they start to look at my work, then that leads to a job. Like I could have, I'm sure there are people who are living in Columbus, Ohio, and they're submitting stuff to different publications or different websites, and they're getting jobs. But I mean, for me, it was like, easier to build a kind of networking, to build a community, being around it, and also kind of like more. It's like kind of if you're around people who are doing a lot of what you're doing, it's kind of enlivening and inspiring, and kind of just keeps you motivated and feeling creative, I guess. Yeah, which is yeah.
So the MFA, I think you did the MFA. How long did you wait to do it? What were sort of like the pros and cons of doing an MFA?
Yeah, great questions. So I graduated in 2007 and then started my internship in publishing. I had 2 different internships, in fact, before I got a job. That was 2008. It was during that time that I realized I was really serious about pursuing agenting as a career. And I saw that though editors at the publishers still edit and are a vital part of the process, a lot of the early editorial work was done by agents. And I felt like I had that skill set kind of innately, but I wanted to hone it. And I thought that an MFA would help me do that, and it also might give me a professional advantage. So it was a kind of strategic decision to apply to MFA programs, and I did not have any aspirations to publish my own work. I got lucky. I got a scholarship to the new school, and the classes were at night, which enabled me to continue working during the day. I think if you want to be a published writer, if you want to be a career author, an MFA is a really worthy investment and something that should be given a lot of consideration. I don't think, I know a lot of agents and editors who have MFAs and also a lot of them who don't, and they're completely fine. So I think if you're looking to pursue an MFA because you think it will help you in your publishing career, it may not. For me, the MFA was really invaluable and edifying. Speaking of community, I also met a fantastic community of writers and friends there who became my New York family and who helped me as I progressed through the publishing ranks.
So do you think that taking a little time between undergrad and your MFA was a good idea?
I do. I think that the writing one does in an MFA program, you're often drawing on your life experience, and I think it's really great to actually get some more life experience outside of college before one starts reflecting on it. The reason why I did my MFA so quickly after graduating from Trinity was because it was a kind of means to an end for me. I think if I had wanted to pursue a career as a writer, I might have done other things before getting my MFA.
My question doesn't really pertain to careers, but I was just wondering, totally out of curiosity, would you say that like the literature you studied here still factors into your life? Like, is James Joyce on the shelf, or does he follow you into the next phase?
That's a good. I feel like the stuff. I do think it kind of comes with you, because like I don't know, you always want to have an ability to like touch on different forms or different styles. Like having all of that in your in kind of like your toolbox, I think is always really helpful. And like being able to do like because I've done stuff that's more journalistic, or I'll do stuff that's is like essay format. I've done stuff that's like or that's in dialogue, and having those like different styles, and also like just the ability to like analyze stuff and condense it down, or to be able to get a certain kind of voice across, I think is always helpful. So like, I'm not reading James Joyce every day, or maybe a page. Joe and I went in the morning, but I still think like having like there's still times where I'll kind of like think back on stuff that I've read and kind of find that like inspiring for even just like some kind of section or moment or something that you're writing.
Yeah, I mean, there's having a job and then there's being a person in the world. So, like, no for my job, am I thinking about James Joyce? But yes, in my daily life, when my husband proposed, I thought of Molly Bloom. Yes, I said yes. I was just like, oh my God, that popped in out of nowhere. Like, it's these stories, I think, are so important. And then, like, where you were at when you read those stories is, I think it helps you, like, get through life, which is, like, unbearably painful.
Don't tell them. I would say that the canon of writers that I studied while here, they definitely follow me around, and it's definitely a part of the conversation that I have with most of my authors, especially those that are writing more literary books. But I also think it's just a wonderful foundation to have. And I also studied a lot of contemporary writers while I was here at Trinity. And those classes were really the classes where I realized that this is what I wanted to do with my life. But I don't think that you're able to read contemporary writers or be able to contextualize them properly unless you have a kind of working knowledge of the canon.
Sorry. My question rather is more for Erin. So how can young writers familiarize themselves with like the publishing industry from earlier on, in case they want to become like career writers? How do I make myself familiar with like agents and publishers, and how do I engage in that conversation while I'm still creating work?
It's a fantastic question, and I'd also be happy to talk with you more one-on-one about that after this. I think reading literary magazines is a great way to familiarize yourself with sort of the landscape of emerging writers. Specifically, I read and look for clients in places like One Story and Glimmer Train, Tin House. These are all publications that one needs to have a subscription to, but they often also have free online content. The Indiana Review, the Paris Review, although not so much anymore, the New Yorker, Crazy Horse. So there are a variety of literary magazines that I would recommend. I also think there's a website called LitHub where one can read about publishing news. I can't believe I'm offering this as advice, but I think Twitter is a fantastic way to begin interfacing with people in the publishing community before you're, truly part of it. So I personally hate social media, but I recognize that it does have certain positive attributes, and I am on Twitter, and I'd be happy to point you, if you make an account, in the direction of people you could follow. I think that's a great way of being an active part of the conversation that's happening.
Great. Thank you all. This is amazing. So if you have more questions, feel free to come up and